So think about this for a second. How much is a weak sales team really costing your company's growth? And, what if the top 1% of talent you desperately need isn't even looking for a job?
Right. I mean, that is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is. If you're an executive or like a sales leader or hiring manager, that is the exact high-stakes tension you're living with every single quarter. You're staring down these really aggressive growth targets, looking at your current commercial team, and just agonizing over how to bridge that massive gap.
Yeah, and it's stressful, which is why today we're doing a deep dive into a really fascinating guide by Nathan Davis.
Yes, from the sales experts.
Exactly. And this source, I mean, it completely deconstructs the actual anatomy of revenue-driving B2B commercial hires. It really tackles that ultimate paradox of organizational growth.
Which is needing the absolute best talent to scale, right?
Right. But those top-tier performers, they are currently fully employed, they're hitting their quotas, and they're driving revenue for someone else. And sometimes that's even your direct competitors.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a tough pill to swallow.
It is. So this guide goes way beyond just, drafting generic job descriptions. It breaks down the specific genetic makeup of a modern, high-performing sales organization, and it outlines the highly specialized hiring strategies you actually need to achieve true, sustainable sales success.
Well, our mission for this deep dive is basically to tear down those traditional, kind of outdated views of a standard sales department. We are going to unpack the exact specialized structure of a modern revenue engine, layer by layer.
Yeah, and really figure out how to acquire the people who make that engine run.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to build a reliable pipeline and actually win business, the source argues that you have to start at the very top. But leadership in sales is not just a catch-all term, is it?
No, not at all. The text divides it into completely distinct strategic and operational functions. And that division is, well, it's the fundamental baseline for revenue predictability.
Right.
Because a weak or poorly structured leadership team, it doesn't just result in missed quotas for like one quarter. It completely stalls your overall market expansion.
And it damages those long-term customer relationships, too.
Yeah, exactly. It creates this compounding effect of missed opportunities that can literally take years to correct. The structural breakdown here, it basically separates the macro-level vision from the micro-level execution.
Which brings us to the sales director versus the head of sales. And, in my mind, I'm picturing almost a cognitive split here. So the sales director is like the architect designing the blueprint for the skyscraper, while the head of sales is the foreman on the ground, making sure the crew actually builds it to spec every single day.
That is a highly accurate way to frame it. I really like that analogy. According to the text, the sales director owns the overall, long-term revenue performance.
They're their horizon people.
Right. They're defining the overarching sales strategy, setting the aggressive revenue targets, and building out those really complex pipeline forecasting models. Their focus is completely on the horizon.
So they're dealing with the board and the senior leadership.
Yeah, they work closely with them to ensure that the commercial strategy seamlessly integrates with the broader business goals, like whether that is moving into new international markets or, say, preparing the company for an acquisition.
Got it. So they're living 6 to 12 months in the future. But, if your brain is entirely focused on what's happening next year, you still need the motor cortex firing the muscles today just to keep walking.
Exactly. And that operational execution is where the head of sales lives.
The foreman on the ground.
Yep. They are in the trenches, focused entirely on day-to-day discipline. The text specifically lists their responsibilities, which include managing the team on the floor, performance coaching, and refining the sales process.
So they're the ones managing the immediate pipeline and handling the actual recruitment and onboarding of new sales staff.
Right. They are entirely responsible for the daily culture and the immediate structural rigor.
But what happens when a company tries to merge those two functions? Because honestly, I see this all the time in mid-sized companies. They hire a VP of sales and just expect them to do both jobs.
Oh, yeah. And what's fascinating here is how quickly that dual expectation completely paralyzes a company's growth.
Really? Paralyzes it.
Completely. The cognitive load of switching between those two modes is simply too high. I mean, think about it. When an executive is expected to build a complex, multi-year revenue forecasting model for the board of directors while simultaneously sitting in on a junior rep's cold call to coach them on their CRM hygiene.
Oh, man. That's super.
Right. Coaching them on the tedious daily data entry required to keep customer software accurate, neither task gets the attention it requires.
Yeah, so the pipeline just dries up in Q4 because literally no one was looking ahead in Q2.
Precisely. They either hallucinate the future because they're buried in daily call metrics, or they neglect the current team's development because they are just locked in board meetings all day. Predictable revenue requires the strategic and the operational to be expertly managed as separate, dedicated functions.
You definitely need the visionary to set the destination and the operator to run the engine room. That makes perfect sense. So once that leadership structure is solidly in place, the guide moves down to the individual contributors.
Yes, the front line.
And it seems like the era of a single salesperson doing everything from the initial cold call to closing a complex enterprise deal, it's largely over in modern B2B organizations.
It's highly inefficient. You really don't want your most expensive, experienced talent spending hours searching for email addresses or leaving voicemails.
Right.
So the text breaks down the individual revenue producers into highly specialized roles, and it starts at the very top of the funnel with SDRs, or sales development representatives. These are your dedicated prospecting specialists.
The early stage prospectors.
Yeah.
So what does their day actually look like based on the text?
Their entire function is built around volume and qualification. They are identifying potential leads, conducting massive amounts of daily outreach through phone and email, and qualifying those prospects to ensure they actually have the budget and the need.
So they're teeing things up.
Exactly. Their ultimate metric of success is booking qualified meetings for their senior sales colleagues. And the text notes this role is especially critical in tech and SaaS companies, software as a service.
Oh, for sure. Because of the churn.
Right. Creating a massive, continuous top-of-funnel pipeline is the only way to combat subscriber churn and ensure predictable growth in that industry.
Okay, let me introduce a hypothetical here to test this, because the text also brings up BDMs, business development managers.
Yes, it does.
So let's say I'm running a logistics software company, right? My reps are making hundreds of calls a week to warehouses. If I already have an SDR team dialing those numbers, wait, aren't BDMs and SDRs essentially doing the exact same job, just sending cold emails and making calls?
Well, it is a really common point of confusion, and frankly, it leads to a lot of poor hiring. But the source clarifies a critical nuance here.
Okay, what is it?
SDRs are playing a high-volume game in an established market. They are qualifying known entities and setting the table for someone else. BDMs, however, take on a slightly broader, highly strategic front-end role.
How so?
They are often tasked with generating entirely new business opportunities in uncharted territory, initiating those really early-stage conversations.
Uncharted meaning like new geographical markets or new industries.
Both, actually. A BDM might be tasked with identifying how your logistics software could be adapted for the healthcare supply chain, which is an area your company has maybe never even touched.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so they are cultivating relationships over a much longer period, navigating complex organizational structures just to find the right person to speak with. It requires immense persistence and a more relationship-driven approach at the front end compared to the sheer volume-driven qualification of an SDR.
I see the distinction now. So the SDR is processing the ore we already dug up, while the BDM is out in the wilderness surveying for brand new mines.
That's a great way to put it.
And once that qualified opportunity is secured by either of them, it gets handed over to the closers, right? The account executives or AEs.
Yes, the account executives take the baton. They are responsible for managing the sales process from that initial qualified opportunity all the way to the signed contract.
So they're the ones doing the demos and negotiations.
Exactly. They conduct the detailed product demonstrations, manage the internal pipeline, negotiate the pricing, and ultimately close the business. In B2B environments, AEs are navigating incredibly complex sales cycles that often involve multiple stakeholders.
Like the CFO, the head of IT, the end users.
Right, so they have to combine high-level commercial awareness with serious consensus building and negotiation capabilities.
But, buyers today, especially in complex B2B sectors, they're incredibly educated. If an AE is selling a multi-million-dollar cybersecurity platform, the buyer's CTO isn't going to be satisfied with just a slick slide deck.
Oh, absolutely not.
They want to look under the hood at, API integrations and data latency. And an AE can't possibly know every single line of code right.
Which brings us to the fourth crucial individual contributor role that the text outlines, the sales engineer.
The technical experts.
Yep. In complex technical sectors, sales conversations demand profound product knowledge. Sales engineers are basically the bridge between the development team and the commercial team.
So they ride shotgun with the AE.
Exactly. They step in alongside the account executive to explain the deep technical solutions, demonstrate the complex products in real time, address highly specific technical objections, and support the intricate proposal development.
They are the ultimate credibility builders.
Without a doubt. I mean, an AE can sell the overarching business value and the return on investment, but the sales engineer provides the absolute technical proof. By alleviating the buyer's technical anxiety, they drastically increase the likelihood of winning those massive, complex deals.
It is almost like a highly specialized medical team. You have the triage nurse doing the initial assessment, the diagnostician figuring out the specific problem, and the specialized surgeon coming in to perform the actual procedure.
That's spot on.
It's a brilliant way to structure a team. But, as the text points out, even the most elite surgical team is useless if there are no patients in the hospital. Which leads us to the critical demand generation bridge between sales and marketing.
Right, and the source makes a profound argument here that fundamentally challenges how a lot of companies operate. While sales teams ultimately close the deals, marketing teams play an indispensable role in generating the demand.
Yeah, the text explicitly categorizes selected marketing leadership roles as commercial roles, which is wild.
It is a major shift in perspective. So many companies treat marketing like an isolated arts and crafts department, making pretty brochures and tracking social media likes completely disconnected from the actual revenue engine.
Exactly.
But the guide argues that roles like heads of marketing, demand generation leaders, and growth marketing directors must be directly tied to revenue targets. They should be focused on generating mathematically qualified leads and supporting specific targeted sales campaigns.
Because if marketing is just focused on, like, brand awareness without a revenue quota, they end up feeding the SDRs generic leads that will never convert.
Wasting the entire sales team's time.
Yeah.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it explains why specialized alignment is so critical. A perfectly structured sales and marketing team is a fragile ecosystem, and that leads directly into what the guide calls sales dynamics and the immense danger of the environment trap.
The environment trap. Okay, this is arguably the most counterintuitive insight in the entire text, because we generally assume that a great salesperson is just a great salesperson. Like, if they can sell ice to an Eskimo, they can sell anything, anywhere.
Yeah, and the text shatters that myth entirely.
Yeah.
Recruiting for these revenue-driving roles requires a really granular understanding of the specific environment you are bringing the candidate into.
So the context is everything.
Exactly. Sales professionals operate within ecosystems shaped by very distinct variables. We're talking average deal size, sales cycle length, product complexity, competitive pressure, and customer expectations.
Here's where it gets really interesting. It's like recruiting an Olympic athlete. You can't just hire a quote-unquote runner. If you need a marathoner, a 100-meter sprinter is going to collapse at mile 2 no matter how talented they are.
Yes. And looking at the psychological mechanics of this, it comes down to their psychological conditioning and how they are wired to receive rewards.
How so?
Well, the text contrasts a high-volume transactional sales environment with a complex enterprise sales environment. In a transactional space, the sales cycle might be a single day or maybe a week. The salesperson is conditioned to get a win, a dopamine hit from closing a deal every 48 hours. They thrive on that sheer velocity and immediate gratification.
So what happens when you take that transactional superstar and hire them to sell enterprise software, where a single deal takes 18 months to close and involves like 12 different executives in the buying committee?
They psychologically starve. I mean, they go months without that dopamine hit of a closed deal. They aren't accustomed to the immense patience, the intricate political capital management, or the slow, methodical consensus building required.
Oh, man. I can picture it.
They panic. They try to force the close too early. They alienate the buyers, and they ultimately fail. It doesn't matter how talented they are. Their internal metabolism is just built for a completely different environment.
It is this invisible psychological friction that ruins so many hires. And the text points out the reverse is also true, right?
Yes, absolutely. If you take a candidate who excels in those massive, multi-million-dollar strategic deals and drop them into a high-volume inside sales floor, they will be completely paralyzed.
Because they want to research everything.
Right. They are used to spending 3 weeks meticulously researching a single prospect before making a call. In a transactional environment, they're expected to make 60 calls by lunch. They will find it chaotic, frustrating, and ultimately unsustainable.
This raises a really important question for me. If environmental match is that deeply ingrained and that crucial to success, how do companies actually go about finding these perfectly aligned individuals? You can't exactly put must have an 18-month dopamine cycle on a LinkedIn job posting.
No, you certainly cannot. And you definitely cannot rely on generic job boards and simply pray that the perfect candidate happens to be browsing the internet that day.
So what's the alternative?
The source outlines a highly specialized, proactive strategy centered around market mapping.
Market mapping. Let's get granular with this. What does that actually look like in practice? Is a specialist recruiter just scrolling through a competitor's employee directory?
It is far more rigorous than that. Market mapping is the process of reverse engineering the talent pool. Specialist recruiters conduct deep, investigative research to identify the specific organizations where your ideal talent currently exists.
Okay, so looking at competitors.
Yes, they analyze companies that compete directly with you, of course, but they also map companies that sell non-competing products to your exact same customer base.
Oh, wait. Give me an example of how that expands the talent pool.
Okay, let's say your company sells high-end industrial 3D printers to factory managers. A lazy search only looks for people selling other 3D printers.
Right.
A market map, however, looks for people successfully selling industrial robotics or heavy machinery or even supply chain consulting software to those exact same factory managers. The recruiter is identifying candidates who already have the relationships, who already understand the 18-month buying cycle of a factory manager, and who possess highly transferable skills.
So you are drawing a literal map of where your ideal environmentally matched talent is sitting right now, regardless of what specific widget they happen to be selling today.
Exactly. You are identifying the invisible talent pool, the people who are actively crushing their quotas and driving revenue.
So what does this all mean for hiring managers listening right now? If you do the rigorous market mapping and you identify the top 1% of talent you desperately need, you are faced with a massive hurdle.
That they're already happily employed.
Yes, they aren't applying for jobs. How do you actually get them into your pipeline?
You have to systematically headhunt them. The guide is unequivocal on this point. The absolute strongest sales professionals are rarely, if ever, active job seekers.
I mean, why would they be?
Exactly, why would they be? They are successful, they are respected in their current roles, and they are likely making excellent commissions.
So how do you approach them?
Specialist recruiters utilize sophisticated headhunting techniques to bypass the traditional job market and approach these passive candidates directly. They present your role not as just a job, but as a compelling strategic career move.
And once you successfully headhunt them and actually get them to the table, how do you evaluate them? Because a flick salesperson is very good at selling themselves during an interview, right?
Oh, they are professionals at it. Which is why the guide stresses that structured assessment is non-negotiable. You cannot simply read their CV and chat about their general strengths.
You need to dig deeper.
You have to evaluate them on proven performance within comparable environments. You don't just ask them if they can generate a pipeline. You use behavioral interviewing to make them prove it.
Like what? What would you ask?
You might ask them to walk you through the largest deal they actually lost in the last year to see how they analyze their own pipeline generation failures. You evaluate their actual capability to navigate complex negotiations and close deals, not just their charisma in an interview room.
Wow, okay. We have covered a tremendous amount of ground today. We've taken the generic concept of hiring a salesperson and really revealed the intricate precision-engineered mechanics of building a revenue machine.
It's a lot to process, for sure.
It is. Let's distill this deep dive into 3 concrete, actionable takeaways for the executives and hiring managers tuning in.
First, abandon the reliance on a single catch-all sales role. You must build a specialized, balanced commercial team.
Right.
That requires clear leadership divided logically between strategy and operations, supported by a front line of SDRs, BDMs, AEs, and sales engineers who seamlessly pass the baton.
Second, hire strictly for environmental fit, not just past generic success. You have to rigorously define your deal size, your cycle length, and your product complexity. Do not hire someone wired for high-velocity transactions and expect them to survive an 18-month enterprise cycle.
Absolutely. And third, to achieve true sales success, you must look beyond the active job seekers. If you want the top 1%, utilize market mapping to identify where they are currently thriving, even in adjacent industries, and proactively headhunt those top-tier passive candidates.
Because if you are realizing that your current hiring strategy is essentially posting a job description and leaving your company's growth to chance, it is time to pivot. To secure the top 1% of sales talent, you need to deeply define the specific role, the environmental dynamics, and the exact success profile before you ever launch a search.
For listeners who want to master these specific mechanics, I strongly suggest visiting thesalesexperts.com. The site offers extensive resources and Q&A sections detailing exactly how passive candidates are identified, how recruiters evaluate true, proven performance, and how this specialized search process actually functions.
Yeah, it is an invaluable resource for anyone tasked with scaling a commercial team. Definitely explore thesalesexperts.com to take these strategies further.
Highly recommend it.
We opened this deep dive by asking the high-stakes question of what a weak sales team is costing you. So, as you evaluate your own commercial structure today, we want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over.
Okay, what is it?
If your ideal revenue-driving candidate is currently the top performer at your absolute biggest competitor, what would your company's culture, compensation, and leadership structure need to look like today to make them risk it all and jump ship to you?